Hello, super quick Christmas wreaths. Today I'm going to show you how to make 2 different wreaths in under 10 minutes each. I'm Zorab and this is Byther Farm. Today's video is sponsored by Readly, the magazine subscription app, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them later on. So I have got the Christmas wreath that I made last year, and I made this for the kitchen, and it had bay leaves and lavender on it, and it smelt lovely, but after a year it is very definitely dry and crispy. Oh, in fact I put some rosemary in it too, and that is super dry. So I'm going to use the base of this for making a fake flower arrangement, a silk flower arrangement in a wreath. And I'm also going to make a wreath from scratch. And I'm going to do a very simple wreath using some willow. So I've just cut this from the garden. I'm going to make a wreath base, and then I'm going to cover it in greenery that I've also cut. And this is going to be mostly ivy. So I'm going to start by making a new wreath base for the wreath with the ivy on it, and do that just by taking some lengths of willow, not too thick, and twisting them around each other, in and out, weaving in and out, and that weaving kind of holds them together. And I think it takes about 4 or 5 lengths of willow to do that. So I'm using slightly finer willow lengths because they are easier to manoeuvre. In theory, that might even be a little bit thick. So the only tools I'm using today are a pair of secateurs and the actual materials I've got, and I'm recycling a little bit of florist wire or garden wire from the wreath that I am recycling today. So that's 4 pieces, and that's starting to feel like it's holding its shape. I'm going to secure it using a little bit of willow. Rather than metal wire, I'm twisting a really fine piece of willow around it to try and hold it in place. That has given us a basic frame. It's not circular yet, but it will get there. So here's the one I made last year. Here's the one I've just made, and they are almost identical sizes. That was just a completely happy coincidence. So I am going to take a little bit of wire from the old wreath, and just in case I need to secure anything on the new one. So I will pop my gloves on now because I'm handling the ivy, and you don't need to do this, but I have a slightly compromised immune system, and I get quite a lot of infections in my hands, so when I'm handling foliage and soil, I try and keep my hands protected. So I'm going to look at the foliage and see which way it naturally curves, because it curves that way. That's the way I'm going to put it on my wreath, and I'm literally just pushing the stems through the willow and hoping that that will stay in place. And then I'm going to twist it around the wreath a little like that. Quite happy to have some of it loose. And then the only bit of fixing I'm going to do is that piece of wire there to start and finish it. And I'm going to have this going in 2 separate directions if I can. So I'll get some going that way and some going around that way, and hopefully that will allow me to have a very loose but very pretty wreath. So I'm going to carry on popping these bits of ivy through the circle of the wreath. And there will be a little bit of trial and error to see how it sits best. And you need to keep checking to see what it looks like, what its shape is. I'm pretty sure I'm going to want to go and get some other greenery. I had thought I might do this only with ivy, but I'm thinking I might go and get some rosemary and maybe a little bit of bay to give some contrast to texture and a little bit more body. See how we're getting on here. So I'm quite pleased with how this is starting to look. So I still have a little piece at the bottom, and there I'm going to put a bunch of ivy coming downwards. I'm really pleased. I'm going to stop the clock and go and grab some other greenery to get that on. And I think this will be done within the 10 minutes. So I am back with some rosemary and some bay leaves. So this year I've been inspired to do some slightly different things with Christmas wreaths by looking in magazines. I've been using the Readly subscription app, and the thing that I've really been enjoying about Readly is it's not just flower arranging magazines or gardening magazines. There's actually a whole range from cars and boats and outdoor living to cookery, and well, you name it, it could well be on there. I certainly haven't explored all the different topics there are to explore, but certainly for my interests there are plenty of magazines, and because you can look at back issues as well, you can get even more inspiration and information. So if you want to have an explore of Readly, they're offering a 1 month free trial subscription, and you can find the information in the video description. I'm really pleased with how this is coming on. I'm always done. The only section I've got left to do is the centre at the bottom, and I'm going to make a bunch of foliage to go on there. I'm going to use some bay because it has got these lovely little flower buds on it, which almost look like berries but not quite. And now I just need to find a way of fixing that onto the bottom of this. I'm going to have to get one more piece of wire, I think. So this whole wreath, I've used 2 pieces of wire. It's taken about 10 minutes once I'd cut the foliage, and it should last right through the festive season. I'm just fixing the last little bouquet bunch of foliage onto the wreath here. I'm getting slightly distracted because the little robin that joins me when I'm gardening has flown into this outbuilding and is wondering what I'm doing. And every now and then it lands on the camera. So just say, I want to star in this. Are you going to come over and say hello? Okay, so it's on the table, at the far end of the table at the moment. I get very easily distracted by things like that. So, there we go. I am really super pleased with this. It's very loose, it's very light, and my gut feeling is I could actually do with a little bit of wire going around it to secure this foliage in a little more. I'll do that before it gets hung up. So now I'm going to move on to reusing last year's wreaths. So I'm going to take little bunches of dried foliage off. It is still completely usable. It's nice and dry. It is a little dusty where it's been in my kitchen for a year, but that's okay. And I have got a length of wire twisted onto it, sort of nearly at the bottom. So I've got a little piece of string at the top to hang it up with, and the wire's nearly at the bottom. That's giving me a nice bottom point. So next thing I'm going to do is get some evergreen foliage all over it, and then to decorate it I have these silk flowers. These are old silk flowers and a couple of pine cones on sticks. I inherited these from my mother, and they've just been sitting in a vase in the living room. I don't really have a look at them, so I thought I would change them into a wreath and have that on the wall where I will see it more often. Now I know that these evergreen leaves are going to dry out, and they're going to end up browns and greys like the foliage from last year, but that's okay because I think those muted colours will go really well with the flowers that I've got. I'm not going to put the ivy in this because I don't know what the ivy does after a length of time in terms of going brown, or whether it would just rot and go mouldy. I actually just don't know. So as I know what happens to both the rosemary and the bay, I will stick with those. We've now been joined by either some sparrows or dunnocks. I'm not sure which it is. Somebody who's good with birdsong will be able to tell me that. But what I think I'm going to do is just lay them out a little bit to start with, to see what sort of colours will go well together. I know they all go well together really, because they've been in a vase together for the last 20 years or so. Okay, I'm quite happy with this. Now these have got wiry, bendy wire stems, so I'm going to be able to actually use the stems to secure them in to the wreath, which is going to make life a whole lot easier. So the way I'm going to do this is to push it straight through the wreath and then twist the wire around, which will secure in the foliage as well as securing in the flower. It's quite tough, it's fiddly, but it should look lovely at the end of it. So I'll just zip through and do these. So I've gone right round that wreath base with hydrangeas, and then I've added in some roses. So these again are silk roses. They're well over 20 years old, probably more like 30 years old, and I'm really pleased that I can recycle these products to make something new that I'll enjoy having in the house. So I've added in some different colour roses, some level with the hydrangeas, and a couple just a little bit higher up to give a bit more texture. And I'm beginning to think maybe I want one more in here. So I'll just pull that through and down a bit gently. There we go. And then wrap the wire around and secure it through the base. So there we go, my completed wreath. I am so pleased with it, and that will go up on the wall in the kitchen to decorate the kitchen for the next few years. Well, after being out in the cold for the last half hour and creating these, I think it's time for a cup of tea. And so wherever you are in the world and whatever you've got planned for today, I hope it's a good one, and I also hope you'll join me again next time.